Hey, welcome to the newest edition of Station Identification. As always, I am John, and for this episode, I'm going to rewind to the turn of the century, which, gotta be honest with you, no matter how many times I say it, it sounds weird for a couple reasons. First off, turn of the century used to mean something old-timey, like 70, 80, 90 years ago, which makes me picture old films being played at the wrong speed because films used to be hand cranked and they often would get the playback wrong, the speed on the motorized projectors. So it would make people look funny the way they walked. Film is done at 24 frames a second, and they'd run it wrong. So they'd either run it at the current right speed, but the film wasn't filmed at that speed. And then there's the turn of the century that I'm talking about. And in this case, it seems like it was just yesterday when we were worried about Y2K. But it was 25 years ago. And that's kind of unthinkable. So ancient, but just happened. So I'm, old man yelling at the clouds kind of stuff. Old man Homer Simpson's dad. Okay. Back to where I was going. So, turn of the century. I was just named as the new person in charge of the media collection at the library I was working at. And as I looked at my new charge, I decided to make some changes. In a way, it was kind of a homecoming for me. Because even more years earlier, when I was a sophomore in college, my first job was at that library, at that desk. And it would change my life in all sorts of ways. Good, bad, all, like I said, various things. I was a student assistant there. And a little over a decade later, I was coming back to that desk as a staff member in charge of it. At the time, the collection was built as instructional support, meaning that only professors could check material out. And that always rubbed me wrong. It rubbed me wrong when I was an employee. The first time around, it rubbed me wrong then. It made sense when I was there the first time because most of the collection was on 60mm film, and most people didn't keep film projectors. In the 10 years later, the collection had gone mostly over to VHS. And it wasn't everybody had a VHS player. So I decided to fix that. So I got also, I wanted to change the direction the collection was going. I wanted to expand the holdings. DVDs had just came on the scene about 5 years earlier, and they were coming out constantly with new editions of the best films ever. And so we started buying discs. First DVD we purchased, Casablanca, DV1. So that was an easy choice. But what else could we buy? I couldn't just buy things that were popular. As we know, we weren't allowed to compete with the town's video store options, which were two mom and pop stores, which would soon become just one mom and pop store. And there was a Blockbuster, which would soon get challenged by a Hollywood Video. And then there was a grocery store that kept opening a video collection and then selling it off and then reopening a video collection. That they vacillated for years. So we decided that we would get classics, examples of genres and such. And so the first 10, 20 films, that was easy. But after that, I decided we were going to need help. And I had a limited budget because I had to keep buying things for the classroom support. So I started to get to work compiling a list to work from. I figured if I would get pushback if I just bought willy-nilly. But if I had titles from a list based on, sources or whatever, I'd have less pushback. And someone could see the vision I had creating this movie collection. So that being that. I also knew that there were whispers that they wanted to create a film school on campus. The communication department and the English department were always talking about film school. So this would help them. They could always then point, the library has this depth of, content that we will use to help educate our kids on the, XYZ. Okay, you know where I'm going with that. Okay. But now back to my list. So first off, I decided to take titles that made it on to reputable sources, such as the AFI 100 Years, 100 Movies list, which had just come out, and the National Film Registry. I started expanding to get other top 100 lists from critics and writers. The Sight and Sound list, the one that the British Sight and Sound magazine put out every 10 years, that they would, create their top 10 of all time. The one that had Citizen Kane on it for like forever as the greatest film of all time. And as my list grew, I started getting an idea about a great list eventually I could actually just put out there. Someone would later come up with that idea of what I always wanted to do, and they were much more expansive. They ended up really, really fleshing it out, and it became They Shoot Pictures, Don't They? .com, which is just had their 20th anniversary of their 1,000 greatest. They also put out their full list, which is 25,000 films long in order of, best to worst. Utterly fascinating. and I will put a link to it in the Hank and John Green, the Green brothers, call the doobly doos or whatever, down below. I will put that there. Well, time moves on, as it does, and so do I. When the department is merged with a different library department, and though angry about that, that's just how things are. In those 10 years, however, I ran that department. We created a collection of over 1,600 DVDs, which would support the newly established film school at the university. And the library came, the reason why they merged us with the other department is they finally accepted that video material were just as valid as a material to be collected as any other. So these were wins. And for myself, as I moved on to other jobs in the library, I'd keep saving top 100 lists. They'd usually come out, once or twice a year when somebody, we need something to, throw in this, month's edition or whatever. And so I'd save it. And every Christmas, one of my favorite holiday things to do every December was waiting for the year's posting of the newest entries to the National Film Registry, because it always comes out every December. Sometimes it's January, but it usually happens in December. And this would be for my own amusement or whatever, but they kept accumulating. And I always kind of had a little thought in the back of my head that I always thought I could do something with it, with my list and my collection of, top 100s that I diligently entered into my spreadsheet. And I started thinking, because I was using lists of 100 consistently, I could use it to create a list of 100 films based on all these lists of the best 100 films, because it's kind of interesting and whatever. But because I also saw myself as an educator, I also thought about teaching a course on the first 100 years of film, the history of that century of cinema, or maybe to give students a handle on film. And out of big lists I made back in the media department became a project I called The Stuff That Dreams Were Made Of. Kind of cool name, based on the Maltese Falcon, of course. And sometimes it was a book, sometimes it was going to be a website, some of it was all through. I put it through various things. At one point, I wanted to make it like a merit badge thing. Oh, you earned your merit badge in film noir because you watched these fine film noirs. But for the most part, I wanted to make it so that people could get a good handle on filmmaking in the 20th century. All that, what is the point of all this? And it's all a setup to the point to talk about the direction I'm going to go for a bit here on station identification. I want to talk about the American Film Institute's 100 years, 100 films, and then their do-over 10 years later, because I have some thoughts on the differences between the two lists, and something I think they should do for when they come up to their 25th anniversary of their first list. maybe I'll look at those other 100 AFI lists. They had the 100 years, 100 laughs, and whatever, and have those held up. And then I want to talk about the National Film Registry. The list starts in 1989. I first hear about it a decade later. And for 36 years, they've stuck to a vision of naming 25 films to that list that are culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant, with the goal that these will be preserved. And by talking about preserving these films, the real goal is to raise awareness for preserving all film. And the National Film Registry is connected with the Library of Congress. And the Library of Congress has a very, very strong film preservation wing. The Librarian of Congress at the time of the start of this, James Billington, said, "Motion pictures are a national treasure, and we have to treat them as such." When I first learned the list, there were 300 titles on it. There are 900 on it today. And they are national treasures in some way. Some of them are narrative fiction works. The things we'd see go to film, theaters or multiplexes or whatever, those films. Others are home movies or newsreels of past events, various things, all championing the notion of the moving image. So, and looking at those titles and when they were named to the list and when they were made, there's some interesting things to talk about. So I want to do something with that coming up. And that whole notion of that book or whatever, I'm still having thoughts on that. And maybe I'll attempt to do like a 5-part thing based on that and those top 100 lists to be the source material for it. A video for each, roughly time period. I'm going to hold this one closer to the vest for the moment because I'm either going to, when we're done doing this video, I'm going to dive right into that project, or I'm going to let it germinate a little more. So I don't really want to talk on it right now, but there's something there that's coming up. And so I'm going to end this with something I wrote for a guide I composed when I worked at that film media desk. When I wrote this, it was to establish a mission for that desk. It was one of the things you got to remember in academia, there is always a thing about mission statements. You're either writing a mission statement or revising a mission statement or planning on writing a mission statement or, what have you. For some reason, it's a big deal. They spend so much time writing those mission statements that they don't ever think of, maybe we should just spend some time fulfilling the mission statement. But that's neither here nor there. What I ended up writing was this. There is a magic in great films, a moment, which, for lack of a better name, can be called the "we're not in Kansas anymore" moment. Which, side note, of course, that's utterly cliched. But when I say it, you know what I mean. Back to my statement. It's the point that says films are different because of this. I am different because of this. And the job, again, was to expose the university community to the magic of cinema, the moving image, and visual storytelling. Because in the 21st century, we've been given great tools to record the moving image. Visual storytelling is what we do. It's TikTok. It's all those things. It's YouTube. And part of my mission now is some of the same. To recognize, back to my statement again, is to recognize that magic and its importance. To find interesting things to watch and to help people see that magic and its importance, and to help people become part of a broader world due to that. Ironically, it also makes you part of a smaller world of everybody who's seen that film, and that moment is the same as their moment. So that's where I'm at right now. And so I'm going to go forward from here. In hopefully the next edition of Station Identification, I'll be on my way on those things. But I wanted to get something out there about those goals. So, just an update. Hope you all have a great day. And I'm going to leave you now. I'm John, and this has been Station Identification.